Hello, I'm Mr. How are you? As you know that this week or next week, many primary six students will be taking their prelim examinations. So now I'm going to do a very fast run through of some of the important concepts or possible section B questions which will be tested. So it is my blessing to this year's students who are taking the prelim examination as well as the actual PSLE. So now I'll do a screen share. Do hang on. As you can see here, I've actually uploaded this One Academy strategic weapon to achieve high success rate in open-ended questions answering. So for example, as you know that about heat topic, about 10 to 12% of questions will be tested in the actual PSLE science. So I just run through this, just a speed run. For example, you can see here, these are essential content and very important, they must mention about the water vapor lose heat to the cooler inner surface of whatever the material is and condense to form tiny water droplets. And these are commonly tested questions. For example, they ask you, how does this mist appear? So the standard way of answering is, as you can see here, let me enlarge my screen bigger. The warmer water vapor above the hot soup or whatever hot tea or coffee comes into contact with the cooler surrounding air or comes into contact with the surrounding air with lower temperature, lost heat, and condense to form tiny water droplets which appear as mist. And also, this is a very commonly tested questions. How is the mist formed when we exit, for example, the air-conditioned taxi or car? So the same concept, you mentioned that the warmer water vapor in the surrounding loses heat to the cooler surface of our spectacles and condense to form tiny water droplets which appear as mist. And sometimes in part B, they will ask, after about 30 seconds or 40 seconds, why this mist disappear? You can say that the mist disappear or vanish because it gains heat from the surrounding and evaporated. And this is my contact number. If you'd like to contact me for more help, more individualized help or smaller group, you can contact me for coaching this year and also make advanced booking for next year. And same thing, this is also heat topic. By the way, heat topic is a P4 topic. Students should be able to grasp the concept. So P4 student do be more attentive during your lesson because P4 heat topic is being carried forward to be tested in P5 as well as about 10 to 12% in PSLE examinations. So you can run through this quite fast. Due to time constraint, I will just scroll slowly for you to look at each questions as fast as possible. And sometimes they ask you about the control setup. So what explain the purpose of the control setup is to show any difference in the variable measured is only due to the change made. For example, this is one scenario where usually the strong source of light is being projected to an aquatic plant in a fish tank, and they measure the amount of bubbles produced. So they ask you what is the purpose of the control setup. So you can say that to show that the amount of bubbles produced is only due to the distance of the light source to the plant. Okay. And the other thing is about water cycle, also heavily tested, about 10 marks in the actual PSLE. So boiling happens throughout the liquid, but evaporation happens on the surface of the liquid only. And second difference, boiling happens only at one temperature, but evaporation can occur at any temperature in the liquid state. I mentioned this part in the liquid state because evaporation cannot happen in the solid state. And some schools do teach the students, but if your school have not taught you, not to worry, you can learn from me. If impurities are present, the boiling point of liquid, example, water, soup, etc., will increase. And likewise, the freezing point of the liquid will be decreased. Okay, will be decreased because impurities will increase boiling point and decrease the freezing point. Okay, by the way, freezing point is the same as melting point. Why? Because pure water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Likewise, pure ice melts at 0 degrees Celsius. So when you mention about melting point, is the same as freezing point. Let's continue. Okay, this one is a commonly tested questions. If you visit Starbucks, you will notice that for hot drinks, they will give you this sleeve, a corrugated sleeve, corrugated. Means they have edges, like wedges or waveform. So if you enlarge, you can see that this part. So they will ask you, why is it that the person holding this cup of sleeve Y can hold longer than using sleeve X? So the concept here is sleeve Y has less surface area in contact between her hand and a cup of hot coffee or hot tea as compared to sleeve X. When using sleeve Y, her hands gains less heat from the hot coffee or hot tea. Hence, she's able to hold a cup of hot coffee with sleeve Y longer than X. Okay, however, there are some students, they answer about this part. If you enlarge, you can see that in between these ridges, right, there are air spaces. So there's another effect. There are air spaces trapped between her fingers and sleeve Y. And you must mention the property of air. Air is a poor conductor of heat. Therefore, the heat from the hot coffee or hot tea is transferred at a slower rate or slower speed from the cup to a finger. Hence, she's able to hold on to the cup of hot coffee with sleeve Y longer than sleeve X. So a comparison must be made between X and Y. Okay, actually, in reality, the effects of 1 here and 2 combine together, allowing us to use using sleeve Y to hold a hot cup of beverage longer than using sleeve X. So this is a very good question, commonly tested in PSLE science. And then also another diagram showing that the air-fuel gap. So the same thing, the double wall glass has an air-fuel gap, unlike the single wall glass. As air is a poor conductor of heat, the cold drink in the double wall glass gain heat slower from the surrounding as compared to the single wall glass. That's why if you fill both cups with the same temperature of liquid, same volume, using the double glass wall, your cold drink can remain cold for a longer period of time. So I did a scenario here. For example, the surrounding temperature is 28 degrees Celsius. Your cold beverage is at 11 degrees Celsius. So you can see that the single glass wall, because they do not have the layer of air in between, so it gain heat faster from the surrounding. So the temperature of this beverage, 11 degrees Celsius, will gain heat faster than the one, the double wall glass. And likewise, this is actually taught in P4. The metal track would gain heat from the sun and expand. If there were no gaps, the track would buckle, bend, or break. And this is another questions about making or collecting fresh water from seawater. This diagram here. So I just go through this as is more important. Let me go through this first before I scroll up to see the next question. Okay, how is clean water being collected from seawater? The same thing. You must mention that during the day, the heat from the sun causes the seawater to gain heat and evaporate. As the temperature drops at night, the warmer water vapor loses heat to the cooler inner surface of the plastic sheet and condense to form tiny water droplets. So for P6 student, you also must mention one more step. Gravity pulls the water droplet along the downward slope of the plastic sheet and drop into the cup. Okay, this plastic sheet over here, and drop into the cup. And now return back to question 9. Explain how the circulatory and respiratory system work together. And you must mention about the lungs and the respiratory system deliver oxygen to the circulatory system through the blood vessels. Okay, nowadays they have removed the capillaries, the veins, and the arteries. So you just mention, group them together as blood vessels. The blood vessels then deliver the oxygenated blood to the cells in all parts of the body at the same time. So when you see here, I put the word veins, right? So instead of veins, you can just replace it with blood vessels. The blood vessels also deliver the deoxygenated blood to the lungs to remove carbon dioxide. So these are commonly tested questions, and also about the polar bear, because air is a poor conductor of heat. The air trapped in between the fur of polar bear reduce heat loss from the polar bear to the colder environment. So the polar bear lose heat slower to the surrounding. And also, this is a P6 question about adaptations, structural adaptations, commonly tested questions. As you examine most of the fishes in the ocean, right, they have darker pigmentation on the top than the bottom. Explain how this adaptation helps fish to avoid detection by predators. So you must mention, for example, the predators like the eagles flying above the sea, right? So when predators view from the top, the darker pigments of the fish blend in well with the darker color of the sea or seabed, avoiding easy detection by the predator. Okay, now change scenario. A bigger shark from the bottom or from a deeper depth look upwards. So when predator view from the bottom, the lighter pigments of the fish blends in well with the lighter color of the sky, avoiding easy detection by the predator. Okay, if you observe, penguin also the same. If you see the penguin, right? Usually the penguin, the front is white, right? The front is white, the back is dark. So when the penguin swims like this way, so you see if there's a predator above, it looks down, right? It's dark, right? Black color of the penguin's back. It camouflage or blends in well with the darker surrounding of the seabed or the sea. So when another, maybe the killer whale looks upward, okay? So the belly of the penguin is white. So white camouflage with the white clouds. Same concept. Okay, next, this one I encourage you to watch a video of how the zebra stripes create an optical illusion. You can search optical illusion of zebra stripes. Okay. Zebras are animals that live in herd. They are found in grassland, which are also homes to carnivorous animals such as lions. When lions attack a herd of zebras, they usually attack the weakest animal of the herd. Although the black and white stripes of the zebra makes it stand out against the grassland when it is alone, they are useful when they are in a herd. Explain why this is so. So in other words, the zebra stripes is like, we call it like a barcode. Now a lot of barcode, right? You scan the barcode. So the zebra is like standing in the grassland is a barcode, very easily visible if it's alone. But however, if they are living together as a herd, okay, this is what they do. When zebra moves in a herd together, they will create an optical illusion to predators. As the black and white stripes blend in well with the grassland, therefore, the predators find it difficult to lock into a single prey. Okay, it's also being rumored, I don't know how true is it, that most of the predators like the lions, the tigers, they are colorblind. So when the zebra move together as a herd, right, they get confused. So you can look at this YouTube video, optical illusion of zebra stripes. And next is this about lubricant. How oil acts as a lubricant to reduce frictional force between the surfaces of the track and ball. So there's less kinetic energy being converted to heat energy and sound energy along the track. Hence, the ball has more kinetic energy to move further. So this is an explanation of how if you put a layer of oil, using the assigned amount of force to push a ball, right, the ball would roll a further distance. So the concept tested is the lubricants reduce the frictional force between, okay, when you talk about frictional force, we might mention between what surfaces. So in this instance, it's between the surface of the track and the ball. So there is lesser kinetic energy being converted to heat energy and sound energy along the track. Therefore, the ball has more kinetic energy to move further. So this is a standard explanation for these very commonly tested questions. Why applying a layer of oil allow the ball or the whatever toys can move a further distance? So do remember, like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Okay. And then this one back to P3 topic, compare two differences between the life cycle of cockroach with that of the mosquito. So you can screenshot this. I will not explain further. Okay, this is another typical energy conversion question in P6. A ball is being bounced up and down. Explain in terms of energy conversion why the ball cannot bounce back to its original height. You can see here. So the standard answer is some of the kinetic energy of the ball was converted to heat energy and sound energy. Therefore, the ball has lesser or less kinetic energy to return to its original height. So normally this brief explanation is being given 1 mark. Let's continue. Okay, what does the food chain show? Sometimes they study food chain, but they've forgotten what's the purpose of the food chain. So the food chain actually shows how energy is being transferred from one organism to another in the community or in the food web. Because sometimes they would isolate the food web or food chain. They ask you, what does this food web shows? So you can say the food web shows how energy is being transferred from one organism to another in that habitat or in that community. Okay, so this is another interesting question, which I put this dinosaur here, ask them to draw a possible food web or food chain using all the three animals below and other plants or animals. So this is actually one of the possible answer: plant, brontosaurus, giraffe, elephant, lion. So another interesting fact is I'm also an aviation enthusiast. So you can see some of the questions I integrate with technology, just like the bat. So in these questions, sometimes in more challenging PSA question, they give you some facts and use these facts to make inferences. So this higher order thinking skill. So I give you one specific example here. So you can see clearly there's a bat here gaining superior situation awareness. So nowadays, with a lot of fighter jets or spy plane, right, we must have situation awareness in order to gain air superiority. So that is the better plan. So I have crafted this question actually this morning. Defense scientists observed that a certain species of bat in Africa can locate its prey accurately, even when flying in the darkness of caves. Sound energy emitted from the bat bounces off the face of the caves. If they are flying insects, these sound waves get blocked and the precise locations of them are being identified. So now they show you a scenario and tell you the fact about echolocation, but they do not use the word echolocation. So normally they will have a diagram. So I have this simplified diagram which I extracted from a YouTube channel, but I can't remember from which video. If you know this video, please let me know. Because I'm looking for this video. I remember it's showcasing some of the top fighter jets. I think Griffin or Typhoon class video or fighter jets about 3 years ago. I screenshot this, but I want to show my student the original video where this bat actually appears. So using this theory, explain how do the radar of fighters or spy jets are used to detect and identify flying objects in airspace. So I give a hint here. Radar emits radio waves. So they ask you to explain how radar, right, or of these fighter jets or this spy plane, the Blackbird, are used to detect and identify flying objects in the airspace. So you must say that the radar emit radio waves just like the bat emit sound waves. Okay, these radar waves, when they hit a solid object, the radio waves will bounce back. Okay, I repeat. So you say that these fighter jets or spy plane, their radar emits radio waves, just like the bat emit sound waves. When the radio waves hit a solid object, they will bounce back, and the precise locations of these flying objects are being identified and determined. So this using knowledge that are given to you, facts, you have to make inferences. So this is one level of the new testing protocol for PSLE science. This is called making inferences. And One of the schools that actually integrate the applied learning program is Hillgrove Secondary School, and I took this picture this morning when I cycled past this school. For those aviators or students who aspire to join the aviation industry, be it flight or aerospace, this is a good school to consider. It's situated inside, to be more precise, I believe is Bukit Gombak. Yeah, Bukit Gombak is just next to Bukit Batok. So, and this is also another question I crafted earlier this year during the Singapore Air Show. So at the 2026 Singapore Air Show, the RSAF F-16C and the Apache helicopter demonstrated exactly this aerial stunt. And I calculated, and I from the website, right? You can Google the mass of the F-16C is about 8,600 kilogram. I think it's not fully loaded. Okay, 8.6 ton. While the Apache is 5,200 kilogram. Okay, 8,600 compared to 5,200. Explain which aircraft is having more gravitational potential energy. Okay, gravitational potential energy is determined by three factors: the mass of the object, the height, and also the gravity of the planet or the place. So gravity is the same, right? But look at the picture here, the diagram. Number one, the F-16C is at a greater height. And secondly, it's also heavier. So from here, we can conclude that the F-16C is having more gravitational potential energy than the Apache helicopter because it's having a greater mass and also is flying at a greater height. Okay, so this is using application. Okay, next, part B. Kelvin said that the F-16C is having more kinetic energy than the Apache, even though they are flying at the same speed during this aerial stunt. Is he correct or wrong? Okay, this one is actually some school they may or may not teach you. It's also not directly in the PSU science syllabus. But you must know that kinetic energy of an object is determined by two factors. One is the speed of the object. Two is a mass. So here we can see that actually the F-16C is at a, so height is doesn't involve this question, right? They talk about kinetic energy. So they are flying at the same speed. So take note, another important skill is annotation, same speed. So if two objects, same speed, same mass, right, they will have the same kinetic energy. But now they're traveling at same speed. But remember, the F-16C is heavier or has a greater mass. So the F-16C is actually having more kinetic energy than the Apache helicopter. So Kelvin is correct. And for students who like to learn more about science, this is something you should take note because many parents has been asking me to conduct one final round of training for students during the September 1 week break. So this morning I've crafted out these 3 days, 8 to 10 September, Tuesday to Friday. Listen carefully. This 3 days. And during the September 1 week break, it's also called a study break. Okay, 8 to 10 September, morning 9:30 a.m. to 1:45 p.m. in Beauty World Center 0316. Okay, take note that actually this training is very suitable for P5 and P6 student. Okay, take note, for these 3 days, I will only go through P3 to P5 topics. So you may ask me, hey, why not P6? Because P6, most of the P6 students have just learned the P6 topic. So in order to maximize the limited time we have, I think it's wise to revise the P3 to P5 topic because many of these topics, especially P3 and P4 topic, they may have forgotten. And second reason, this one you may or may not know, up to 65% of the PSLE science questions are tested in the content from P3 to P5. Okay, up to 65%. So generally it's between 60 to 65%. To be more specific, you can actually go through the last 3 years PSLE science this booklet and calculate the percentage, which I've calculated for you, but you can verify whether what I'm saying is accurate. Okay. And then I only limited to 9 students. As of this morning, 2 have registered, so I have 7 seats left. Okay, this training is actually very affordable. 3 days is only 450 if you register by 28 August. Okay, however, if you can't come for the 3 days, you can register, come maybe for the first day or 1 day or 2 days. So 1 day is 170, 2 day will be 170 times 2. So it's more worth it to join 3 days if possible. Yeah, it's easier for my logistic also, management. So do continue to plan for your child. This is the last lap of training before their PSLE. And if you have 2 person joining together, each person will enjoy a 20% discount if 2 or more register together. So once again, I like to highly recommend this course is very suitable for both P5 and P6 students. Do sign up fast and registration actually starts now. So once again, I'm Mr. Howard Yu. I like to send my final greetings to every one of you to prepare for your prelim well and also for the coming actual PSLE science. Take care, stay safe, cheers.